Welcome to Community Cocktails with Kimberly, hosted by Kimberly Woodard, a realtor for nearly 20 years with Ebby Halliday Realtors. Join her every first and third Wednesday of the month as she meets with the top community influencers to help you get to know the area you want to call home. Don't just love your home, love your community. And now, your host, Kimberly Woodard.
Welcome, viewers, to this episode of Community Cocktails with Kimberly. I am so excited about this one because not only are you going to learn about travel, and I know we're all ready to get out and travel around after being cooped up. So I have Gina Foster here with Ready, Jet Set, and Go. I love that name. Travel agency, and you're the owner. So exciting. And she is going to talk to us about the travel and how things are now in 2021. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here today.
Oh, definitely. Well, I know we are all ready to get out. We've been cooped up too long. So let's talk about travel in 2021.
Right. So yes, I think you're right. We are definitely all ready to travel. And the good news is we're really starting to see the demand pick up for travel.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And depending on the destinations, like I said, the demand is really there. So it's really great news. So instead of, for the past year, we've done a lot of canceling people's trips. We're now actually rebooking them and seeing them off to have great vacations.
That is wonderful. I love hearing that because, I know that last year was a downer for not only the travel industry, hotels, all the resorts, and just those destinations that really, rely on the income of the tourism. So that's great news. So let's talk about some of the top places that you're seeing people going to right now.
Okay, definitely. So right now, there's a couple of places that are really hot right now. Okay. The first one I would say is Mexico.
Oh, okay.
So many people are wanting to go to Mexico right now. And basically to go to Mexico, there's no COVID requirements. So you don't have to take a COVID-19 test going to Mexico. It is required coming back to the United States. But all of the resorts that I send my customers to, the resorts are great. They're actually offering COVID testing right at the resort, right on property, and there's no cost to the guest. So it's a pretty simple process. It adds one little layer to your trip, but when you get there, you usually schedule your COVID test upon arrival, and usually you do it 3 days before your departure date. And once you take the test, you usually get your results back within a couple of hours. So it doesn't really disrupt your trip too much. No. And like I said, people are having a great time. So Mexico is definitely a hot destination right now. And because resorts are booking at a reduced capacity, it's really important to book in advance because things are really starting to book up because these resorts aren't allowed to book at 100% capacity yet.
Gotcha.
So Mexico is really hot. Another one that's really popular right now is Hawaii.
Oh.
So Hawaii is kind of the flip of Mexico. You have to test to go to Hawaii, but you don't have to test to come back.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, and that's actually the same for U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So those three destinations you can go, you have to test to go to, but coming back, there's no test necessary. Definitely all the Hawaiian Islands are great right now. Each one has kind of their own set of COVID requirements. They're all a little bit different. Maui actually is just starting, they're just starting up with a second test when you land at the airport. The Big Island has been doing this, and now Maui's going to start doing it because they've seen a little bit of an uptick in their numbers. But if you've been vaccinated, that you can bypass that second COVID test. Okay. So it's a lot to keep up with, but once you get there, it's wonderful. My family, we actually went to Maui for spring break.
Oh, fun.
And so we've been through, I know how it all works. Right. We've been through the whole process, and it's pretty simple. It really is. And once we were there, we had a great time.
Enjoy.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say those two destinations are really popular right now. In terms of like the continental U.S.
Yes.
Florida. Florida, and national parks are both just seeing a lot of traffic and people interested in those areas. Yes. So it's really important, like I said, to book early.
Yes, definitely. So you bring up the national parks, so we're thinking because people can do camping and kind of be in their own little cocoon,
I mean, yes and no.
Okay.
A lot of it's just because a lot of people don't want to have to be bothered with COVID testing, right?
Right.
So they're worried maybe about coming back from an international destination, having to
Right.
test while they're there, and they just don't really want to be bothered with that right now.
Right.
And everyone's kind of at a different comfort level, right, with like what they're willing and able to do. So I think that's why we're just seeing a lot of people that want to stay in the continental US. And so national parks have just, last summer they were really busy, and this summer I think they're going to be really busy as well. So I think that's it. All types of lodging, though. I mean, really,
Okay.
you can do the glamping at some
Right.
of these national parks. Of course, camping or RV. But then there's resorts, there's VRBOs. I mean, there's a
Right.
range of
Right.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess when we're talking about the hotels and stuff, what have you seen that's a little bit different of the hotels that maybe we should be aware of, that maybe we were accustomed and that's been pulled back a little bit?
Right. Well, probably the biggest thing is probably the masks.
Okay.
I mean, just like we've all really become accustomed to,
Yeah.
is you're probably going to have to wear a mask. And I think it's really just important to know what destination you're going to, just because, for example, we live in Texas and maybe
Yeah.
things are starting to ease up a little bit here. Say you go to Colorado or California, I mean, you have to do whatever their rules are at the
Right,
time. So,
right.
theirs may be a little bit different than ours. And like when we were in Maui for spring break, you had to wear, Hawaii's pretty strict with the masks. They even have an outdoor mask mandate. However, once you're like at the pool, sitting at your chair, or you're at the beach and you're able to stay within 6 feet of other people, you can take your mask off.
Gotcha.
So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just kind of to be aware of that. The other thing, when not necessarily at the hotels, but something that you just want to prepare for, is if you want to do any tours or excursions, it's really important this year to book them in advance.
Okay.
So you may be in a destination, and maybe a couple of years ago you were used to, oh, maybe I want to go snorkeling tomorrow, and book it at the last minute. I want
Right.
to do some snorkeling excursion. Well, right now, again, because of a limited capacity, and these excursions maybe not being able to book up to 100%,
Right.
it might already be booked. And so it's just really important. I think right now with vacationing, it's just a little more planning is involved. You
So
just
plan
have to-
ahead.
Exactly, just plan ahead. I mean, it's not hard. But yeah, you just kind of have to think ahead, because what you think might be available might actually not be once you get there, if you wait until the last minute.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely, I know, that's my weakness on vacation is that my husband and I we're so bad at planning ahead. We're like, oh, we're like kind of on the fly by our seats of pants people. And we're like, oh, we'll wake up. Let's do this. Let's do that. We never plan.
Right. And in years past, it was probably
Yeah.
fine. And you might be fine this year
Right.
too. But it just you may want to, if there's something really important to you, for example, if we go back to Hawaii and we're talking
Right.
about Hawaii, if you wanted to go to a luau,
Yes.
that's something that, these luau's maybe in the past maybe they were running 7 nights a week every night. Now they might be running 3 nights a week, where before they were 7 nights a week, could hold 500 people. Now they're 3 nights a week, can hold 250 people.
Gotcha.
So, it's just, if that's something important to you or your family, we just want to get it booked early.
Definitely, definitely. So you can really enjoy your
Exactly.
vacation.
Exactly.
So we also, are we seeing things opening up internationally more?
Yeah. So definitely more and more. I mean,
Okay.
every month we're hearing a little bit more. Greece is opening
Okay.
for Americans. Iceland is opening. Europe, the EU did come out and say that they're expecting Americans to be able to travel this summer. But even though they said this summer, they really didn't give like a concrete date.
Gotcha.
So again, like we're getting there. I think some of these places are just going to take a little bit longer. And then too, it's just really important to check, like, before you go to a destination or before you book something, you just want to make sure you check with the official government sites or the tourism boards, just so you make sure you're really up to date on what the requirements are. So you're just prepared before you get there.
Oh,
But definitely, I mean, I think we're starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel.
definitely. Oh, it's been so long. I mean, I know I was bummed. We were supposed to be in Europe during spring break this year, and obviously we weren't. We were here in Texas.
Right. right.
So I long for the day that we get to go back, which I'm hoping by next year.
Me
I'm hoping
too.
next spring break.
Exactly. I think so.
So when we're talking about travel, um, if we're preparing our travel, for airplanes, say,
Mhm.
what, as a, person going on an airplane, and I will be honest, I have not been on a plane since COVID started. So I am definitely the newbie. What should we be prepared for, or, make sure that we have, or kind of get ready to, take our trip on our airplane?
Right, right. Well, okay, so definitely your mask. That will be
Yes.
required. And then, depending on the flight, sometimes it's all a little bit different depending on the airline and how the length of the flight, but whether like food and beverage service will be happening or not. It just kind of varies, like I said, from airline to airline, and then
Right.
from the length of your flight. So, you may want to bring, once you get through security, grab a bottle of water, maybe grab a few snacks, just in case you're on a longer flight and you may need something like that. But I have been on a couple of flights, and they definitely require you to wear that mask. So you do need to be prepared for that. And if it's a long flight, it gets a little tiring at
Right.
the end, but it's worth it because you're usually going somewhere wonderful. So it's all worth it. But that's really, and then if there's any, back to the COVID requirements, like if there's
Right.
any COVID requirements, you would need to make sure that you bring all your documentation.
Okay.
So, and that really just depends from place to place, whether you need a COVID test, or sometimes now maybe if you've received the vaccination, maybe your vaccination could take the place of the COVID test. So that's pretty much it. In terms of, though, like air and transportation,
Right.
rental cars, that's
Yes.
something that is kind of a big issue right now. There's definitely a lack of rental cars. So the demand is just greater. A lot of these rental car companies had to sell off some of their cars during COVID. So really, it's across the country, especially Hawaii is really seeing a problem with this. So if you need a rental car once you land at that destination, make sure you book it early. So a lot of times, like right when you book your trip, it's really important to book your rental car at that point. A lot of times people will probably book a trip, and then, a month or two before they go, let me throw on, I'm going to grab that rental car. Well, if you're wanting, a specialty car, or a full-size car, or maybe you have a family of 5 or 6 and need like an SUV, if you wait until the last minute, it may not be available.
Gotcha.
So again, it's kind of just all about preparing.
It is. No, it sounds like, it's really plan everything, early, and just make sure that you have it. So, then obviously we have all our people that are traveling, in cars, because they're staying domestically and going to the national parks, or going to Florida.
Right.
So yes, Florida seems to be like a straight shot 12 hours to the Panhandle. So, I don't know, maybe sometimes it could be 10 in my car. But anyways, things have changed, so I guess some tips for those that are, packing the car and heading out to prepare for as you're traveling, because I know when we would travel, we literally would not bring anything. We're the ones that we stop for everything, and we do use it as a break. So we would stop at restaurants, stop at,
Right.
To get water or something. We just don't pack. And my husband is very funny about my kids eating in his car. That's the one fetish he has, because they're messy. So what tips should we give the audience on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of, I guess I should, depending on where you're driving, you're right. Restaurants may not all be open for in dining. So you might have to do to go. So again, I think we're just going back to that planning, maybe kind of map your route ahead of time and see where you're able to stop. And if restaurants along that way are going to be open, are fast foods, the inside of fast food restaurant's going to be open, or you may have to do the drive-through, and your kids, your husband may not like it, but those kids may have to eat in the car. So I think I would just really recommend doing that. And then once you get to your destination, the other thing to think about is restaurant reservations. So, depending if restaurants are having in-dining seating, if that's open, make your reservations in advance, because they may be having in-dining seating, but it may be at a limited capacity. So,
Gotcha.
so just be aware of that. But really, I would always just look at the destination you're traveling. Don't just assume that everywhere's like where you're living and has the same rules and restrictions, because where you're traveling might be different or along that way.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely. Because we all kind of get into that assumption. I feel like, we're accustomed to what we know and what we're living in, and that everywhere else is the same way. And it really isn't. I mean,
Right.
I've had so many clients come here from, other parts of the country looking to move here for those reasons. And they're amazed. I'll tell them, oh yeah, it was right around opening season for the Rangers. And he asked, he goes, is it going to be full capacity? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, you're in Texas. And,
Exactly.
it was, movie theaters and stuff. And they were just used to, not having that. And
Right.
so it was almost like they felt like they were in a whole new planet.
Right. Well, I know it's sometimes because we live here and we're just used to the way it is here. And you sometimes forget that other parts of the country or even the world are, a lot different than it looks right here right now.
Oh, definitely. So I'm going to put you on the spot. So where are you finding the best? I mean, are there any deals out there, or is everything just, are different resorts trying to entice people to come out?
Well, I mean, the deals aren't actually as you might think that there would be a lot of deals right now, but because resorts are only able to book at a limited capacity, and sometimes that's only 50, 60%.
Right.
And the demand, like I said, it really is there for some of the same locations, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
It's like we're all wanting to go to the same places. So there's of course, there's always deals. And in the travel industry, I mean, we always have usually different things we can offer. Depending on the resort, sometimes we're able to offer resort credit or breakfast for two, different things like that. But in terms of just like a great deal right now, I mean, not necessarily, because like I said, with limited capacity and the demand really there, and we're all just wanting to go to those same places. So not necessarily, but, and then with cruising, for example, a lot of people, have had cruises now canceled for like 1 and 2 times. So a lot of times people would cancel a cruise, they'd rebook it, and they've had to cancel it again because it's been over a year now since these cruises have sailed. And so a lot of those people have what's called like a future cruise credit.
Okay.
And so there's people trying to book maybe for next summer that are just trying to book outright, but then there's also all these people who have future cruise credits. So I really recommend for cruising too, itineraries are out. They come out, a couple of years in advance. So if you're thinking about cruising, it's really something to go ahead and maybe go ahead and get that deposit down on the itinerary you're looking at.
Do we know, bring back to the cruising, do we have a date when they're going to start? Right. I know I've heard some rumors, but I feel like it's always changing.
Well, oh my gosh, everything changes like almost every day. So you have to stay on top of it. But yeah, so this summer, actually, a couple of cruise lines have, they are having sailings out of, not right now out of U.S. ports, but out of Bahamas, St. Martin, Jamaica, and the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
There's currently sailing, so that's really great news that they're starting up this summer. And the CDC actually just announced that they think that cruising will start. They're actually saying mid-July out of U.S. ports.
Oh, wow.
So I know there's some criteria that the cruise lines have to follow, but that's really exciting news because a lot of these, like Alaska, for example, I mean, they're just so much of their economy is based on tourism that, it's really important to get cruisers back there. So
definitely.
So definitely. Again, kind of that light at the end of the tunnel, but we're seeing them talk about some dates now, so it's really good news.
That's much better than there was no dates.
Exactly, and for a while there, I mean, really, there hasn't been up until just real recently. There hasn't been much news.
Wow.
So I will have to say though that people who like cruising really should consider all-inclusive resorts because there's really a lot of similarities. And just to kind of compare the two a little bit, so. Think about your cruise, and everybody knows there's all types of room types, but your typical like balcony room is going to be pretty small on a cruise, and that's pretty widely known, and that you're going to have a pretty small stateroom. Well, if you go to an all-inclusive resort, your stateroom your room could be easily like 2, 3, 4 times as big. And then another thing to compare between the two is like drinks and food and Wi-Fi. So at an all-inclusive, that's all included. Any kind of drinks you want, coffee, smoothies, alcoholic drinks, non-alcoholic drinks, Wi-Fi, food, all your restaurants, that's all going to be included in an all-inclusive resort. But on a cruise, depending on the cruise line, sometimes that's included, but sometimes you have to buy a drink package or a soda package or an alcoholic package, depending on what you're looking for. So another benefit to all-inclusives. And then the third thing is if you have maybe a real active family and your kids just like love all the activities that they can find on the cruise ship. There are so many all-inclusive hotels that will keep your kids busy for days. I mean, from everything from water slides and pools and daily entertainment, cooking classes, nightly entertainment. I mean, even like bumper cars and bowling alleys. I mean, really, depending on the resort, there are a lot of things that an all-inclusive resort could offer. And we're really seeing a lot of people who love cruising, those people that they cruise. That's what they do. They take a cruise every year. Some of them have tried all-inclusive resorts and they love it. So just something to kind of keep in mind.
I would I'm much better on stable land.
On land? There you go.
I am on a boat. So I would be the resort.
Yeah.
Well, so fun. Well, I think we've learned a lot, and we are, I don't know about y'all, but I am ready to go out and travel and get out of my little Texas bubble and explore something else in the summertime. So I hope you guys learned some tips. And the one tip I think that I took away from this was plan ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead and get your stuff, get your reservations, get everything booked in advance.
Exactly.
Not, don't be a fly by the seat of your pants girl, like typically I like to be, and try and book it when you get there.
Right. Exactly. If you'll be prepared, you'll have the perfect vacation.
Well, I love it. Well, thank you, Gina, and cheers to us.
Thank you.
And travel.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to contact Kimberly with your real estate needs, you can reach her at kimberlywoodard.ebby.com. We hope you enjoyed our guest this week, and remember, don't just love your home, love your community.